friendship that'll never ever end.
Run!
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 451. Day in the neighborhood. My brothers and sisters. Finally, the weekend has come back to our lives. TGI mother NF, y'all. Hope y'all doing excelente out there today. And I'm glad that she came on back to the channel once again to fuck with the bean. And since I said it's the start of the weekend, y'all know who we're about to go back to. Adrian from Coffeehouse Crime. The Coffee Man Fridays, y'all. And the title of the video is The Hunting Tapes That Led Detectives to a Killer. Now this one just sound like, man, ain't no telling what the hell on them tapes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got so many different things going through my mind as far as what could possibly be on those tapes. And everything that's going through my mind, none of it is good. It is actually just freaking horrible and terrible, man. So I don't know. I'm just excited to get into it, y'all. Another Coffee Man Friday. But before we get into it, my brothers and sisters, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need, please. We back again for the Coffee Man. Y'all got what y'all need? Y'all ready to go? Then let's go.
After Julie Dart disappeared from her hometown in England, strange letters with aggressive demands began to appear at her family's residence. Sadly, nothing could be done to save her, and only a few days later, she was found dead. But when the same pattern emerged with another woman only 6 months later, the authorities knew that they were up against the clock to save Stephanie Slater. A wild goose chase followed, thrusting some unexpected heroes down dark and dangerous paths. But how would all of this end? Who was behind these venomous kidnappings? And would Stephanie ever make it out alive? Welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime, folks. My name is Adrian, and today we're looking at a case so twisted and deceitful that it shocked the UK to its very core. Now, this story involves a range of pretty deplorable behaviour. We have kidnap, ransom, murder, and even train derailment, so get ready for that one. I'd like to remind you that I cover a range of true crime and darkly fascinating stories. If that's your kind of thing, please help me out and subscribe. And before we begin this story today, I wanted to ask you something. How do you like to consume your content outside of these YouTube videos? Now, personally, I spend so much of my day reading, writing, and researching these cases that, by the evening, I don't want to ever look at a screen again. Honestly, you have no idea how much time goes into making these stories.
I know, Coffee Man. I know, me personally, just from what I do on YouTube, I know. And I'm not saying that what I do is even comparable to you. And I'm talking about all the people we watch over here, y'all. Man, listen, man. These fucking true crime content creators, a lot of time every day out of their life is taken up by doing this. You know what I'm saying? So I just like to bring that up because I feel like people, they look at it from the outside looking in, thinking that it's easy to do what he do. And it is not easy, y'all, and it is very time consuming. But let's go.
And to add to that, if I'm working out, walking, or simply cooking, then consuming content with my eyes can be rather tricky. Which is why I rely on the sponsor of today's video, Audible, for my entertainment.
I didn't even know that he was getting into a commercial, y'all. But yeah, man, like seriously, man, it take a lot of time to do these freaking videos. And he is so consistent. He is so consistent. I think he put out 2 a week most of the time. Him, Mike from That Chapter, Mr. Ballin', Evil Intentions, Tragedy Tales. Like, dude, they put in a lot of work, man. I just got to give them their respect for that. But let's get into the story.
and get ready for the deep dive. This is the case of Michael Sands.
Get whatever you may need.
Today, I'm taking you to the middle of the United Kingdom, and to an English region known as the Midlands. Now, having lived here for a while myself, I'm rather familiar with the area. From the castles of Warwickshire to the cities of Leicester and Nottingham, it isn't a bad place to be at all. But I do admit that it's not the most exciting either. If you ever find yourself in the Midlands, I'd say it's worth checking out Leamington Spa, a small city with beautiful architecture and parks. However, I would probably skip Birmingham. Those are 2 years that I'm never getting back. Birmingham doesn't have the most outstanding reputation, and many of its residents are rather vocal about its many glaring issues. It's also known as the UK's capital city for knife crime by concentration, so I'll let that speak for itself. However, Birmingham does have several great shopping centres and the Cadbury Chocolate Factory if that's your sort of thing. Saying that, if you want that Willy Wonka experience that everyone is talking about at the moment, you must travel 300 miles north to Glasgow. Anyway, this story takes us back to the year 1991, with a young woman named Julie Dart. Born on March 1st, 1973, Julie had a rather difficult upbringing and often found herself in trouble, even from a very young age. This was typically through spending money that she'd never had, and often getting herself into large sums of debt. And moving into the year 1991, she yet again found herself to be down on her luck. Barely an adult and with no career, she was left with the heartbreaking decision to work the streets of Leeds, taking to the red light district in Chapeltown to try and salvage her ever-growing debt. At the time, her family had no idea what was going on. Instead, Julie would tell them that she was working long hours at the hospital. Her family were none the wiser, and unfortunately, it would only become evident that things were not as they seemed in mid-July 1991. And that realization came in the worst way possible. Julie had suddenly disappeared, and although it was rather typical for her to be silent for a day or two, her family started to worry after several days. Things took an evil turn on July the 12th when her boyfriend Dominic received a strange letter through the post, and apparently it was written by Julie. Within this letter, she wrote that she'd been kidnapped and now feared for her life. And although she was being offered food, she hadn't eaten in multiple days. She ended the letter by saying that he had until Monday to alert her mother and the authorities, and that her abductor was asking for £140,000. In today's terms, that's £300,000 or $375,000.
God damn, that's a lot of money. But this is what I find weird about this, y'all. Why would she be sending the letter? Even, and I'm not saying, even if her captor is making her do it, why would he make her, talk to her boyfriend? Like, I don't get that part, man. Why wouldn't he be like, it's almost like he making her do it in the third person or something. Like, it's actually him who want the money, but he making her tell them that he want the money. I don't really understand it. Now, it's not like she calling, talking to them on the phone. It's just a letter. So, for all we know, he could be the one writing the letter, acting like her. You get what I'm saying, man? So, I don't know. That right there just weird to me. It might not be to y'all, but I just don't get why he would make her write the letter saying that my kidnapper wants this and that and that. When you ask the kidnapper, can be like, give me this, that, and that. I don't know, y'all. Maybe I'm thinking too hard. Let's go.
The letter read, "Hello Dominic, help me please. I've been kidnapped and I'm being held as a personal security until next Monday night. Please go and tell my mum straight away. I love you so much. Mum, phone the police straight away and help me. I haven't eaten anything, but I have been offered food. Feeling a bit sick, but I'm still drinking 2 cups of tea per day. Help me." Members of Julie's family were able to confirm that the handwriting was in fact hers. But
okay, boom, damn, I'm stupid on that part. So it is her who wrote the letter, but that still don't change the fact that he probably told her everything to say in this letter, and I just don't understand why he wouldn't do it himself. I don't know, y'all. I guess, okay, here we go. Now I'm figuring it out. I guess that he did that to prove the point that, yes, I really have her. You know what I'm saying? Because they will recognize her handwriting. Okay, all right, y'all. I'm not the smartest apple in the bunch. I have to figure ish out. Let's go.
something seemed off about it. It seemed to be messy and haphazard. Soon after, the authorities started analysing it for any clues they could find, and that is when another letter came through. This one indicated a drop-off point for the ransom money. The letter requested that they deliver it to New Street Station in Birmingham, found miles away from home. The letter further demanded that they wait for a phone call at the payphone on Platform 9. The authorities complied with this request, and when the payphone rang at precisely 7 PM, they knew it was her abductor. But unfortunately, the call didn't quite go to plan. After picking up the phone, the undercover officer was met with absolute silence. Furthermore, nobody arrived to collect the money, and no further correspondence was made. While the authorities had complied with the demands in hopes of rescuing Julie, little did they know that, tragically, it was already too late. And on July the 19th, 1991, officers received reports of a suspicious-looking pile in a field found in the town of Easton in Lincolnshire. And sadly, as you may expect, these reports would end in terrible news. Wrapped in this bundle of sheets was Julie's lifeless body. She was bound with duct tape and had suffered blunt force trauma to the head. Forensics determined that she had been dead for roughly 4 or 5 days already, meaning that at the time of the negotiations, she had already been murdered.
That is crazy, man. Then I feel like whoever this is just really was doing all that to F with the police anyway. And the fact that she was already dead when you was making these demands, then you make the demands and the freaking police, they follow through. They are compliant because they trying to save her. And you don't even show up. Like, it just seemed like whoever this is just doing this, just trying to F with the police, you know what I'm saying? Just trying to play games and ish. But costing people their life. Sad.
The news was sure to leave her family devastated, and to compound to the pain and grief in her loss, they had no idea who murdered Julie. At this point, it wasn't clear whether her abductor had any intention of handing her over alive or dead, and while his motives would eventually come to light, it currently wasn't obvious. The callous way in which Julie was found indicated that her killer was neither sophisticated or interested in permanently concealing her body. But the callousness would not stop there, because shortly after, the authorities would receive a second letter, this time written using a typewriter, and its author was now far more demanding. Once again, he was demanding money from the authorities, threatening that if they failed to comply to his actions, then many more prostitutes would die. The letter went on to say that Julie had died from 3 blows to the head before being strangled, and with such dreadful accuracy, it was sure that this letter was linked to her killer. Back then, it was typical for the police to cooperate with a killer via personal ad spaces in local newspapers. In this instance, the officers did this to confirm that they would pay him, and shortly after doing so, the authorities received yet another letter. This cat-and-mouse chase would go on for several more months, with Julie's killer even teasing the authorities by sending in handwritten letters over time. Despite their best efforts, detectives were still none the wiser in finding their suspect, and this would apply tremendous pressure on them too. With fresh threats against other women being persistent through these letters, it meant that no one in the Midlands was safe. Their devious pen pal even threatened to derail a passenger train if they didn't send him the money. Undoubtedly, he seemed to enjoy the power of toying with the police. Our story.
That's exactly what I was just saying, though, y'all. It seemed like he just liked playing games with the police. The whole cat and mouse, Tom and Jerry type ish. I don't even really think he care about the money like that. He just having fun doing this with the police. This is a sick motherfucker. Long story short, short story long, man. He's sick in the head.
Would develop yet again in January 1992, when the authorities received a phone call from a local estate agent. They had called the authorities to report that, after one of their agents had left to show someone a property, she never returned. The home was located on Turnberry Road, which can be found north of Birmingham. Stephanie Slater, who was born and raised in Birmingham, was 25 years old at the time and still lived with her parents. At the time, she had a steady relationship with her boyfriend, and the two had recently booked a holiday to the Isle of Wight, which is one of Stephanie's favourite places. Hoping to pay off the holiday, she had picked this job up only a few weeks prior. Despite her recent start, she was already known to be a pleasant, reliable, and punctual worker, which of course made her sudden disappearance that much more concerning to her manager. And then, just a few hours later, her manager received a tape through the front door. Playing the tape immediately, he heard Stephanie's voice on the other end of the recorder. Within this tape, she said, "This is Stephanie Slater. The time is 11:45. I assure you I am okay and unharmed, and providing these instructions are carried out, I will be released on Friday the 31st of January." Her manager—
Okay, time out. Hold up. Wait a minute. Let me put some cooking in it. I did not freaking know. I did not freaking know, y'all. When we read the title, The Hunting Tapes, I'm thinking like the tape's gonna be after he murdered them. You know how we have watched videos of people. I hate to bring this up, and I'm gonna say it in the best way possible to keep myself from getting took down by YouTube. But we have watched videos of some of these crazy ass people playing with a deceased body and recording it, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. We have watched stuff like that, and I was thinking that it was gonna be something that he was showing after the murder, but he taping the victim calling the police or whoever and telling them, hey, you need to come help me. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't thinking about it in that way, that he was actually having his victims on tape talk and speak to the police and stuff. I was thinking about he just had tapes of what he had actually done to them. Let's go.
Manager informed the authorities immediately, who instantly became aware that Stephanie's disappearance was likely linked to the same man who murdered Julie. Despite this knowledge, they had very little evidence to work with. I mean, this was 1992 after all. DNA and forensic methods were still very primitive back then, and they had to rely on more traditional ways to get by. Police began their search of the property, and what they found wasn't good. Blood was present on the bathroom walls, which was later confirmed to belong to Stephanie. If the authorities had any chance to get Stephanie back home alive, then they knew that they had to act fast. After all, Julie's killer had already proven himself to be rather impatient. The videotape demanded that her supervisor and manager, Kevin Watts, would be the one to drop the money off for her, and thankfully he was willing to comply. On January the 27th, 1992, Kevin was instructed to travel north to Glossop train station and then asked to follow various clues. This included meeting a planted woman at the train station, various phone calls scattered through public phone boxes, and a long drive down a dark road, eventually leading him to a secluded bridge in the fog. And then, while under the cover of darkness, Kevin found himself in front of a tray which had been placed on the wall of the abandoned railway bridge. He was instructed to drop the money into it, and then moments later, the string was pulled and it disappeared into the fog. Although he was in constant contact with the authorities and had even been tailed by dozens of officers, the money slipped off the edge of the bridge and then into darkness. And just like that, her kidnapper was once again lost to the night. Stephanie's abductor remained silent that evening, leaving her family on the edge of their seats in desperate hope that she may be released. And that is when, only a few hours later, there was a knock at the front door. Undercover officers opened the door to a dazed yet alive Stephanie Slater. Despite their—
Holy effing ish. The freaking killer man, whoever this mysterious man is, he actually let her live. He really, like, they complied, the police, but it's crazy though that this time when the police complied and did everything that they did, that you asked of them to do, even though for some reason you having the woman tell them, that part is still kind of crazy to me. But they complied this time, and you actually let her go. You kept your word, but you ain't keep your word the first time. That's the crazy part. You know what I'm saying? You were sending out letters if I can't remember her name now, the first lady who sadly lost her life, you used to send out letters as if she was still alive. But this time he actually complied. I don't know what the fuck going on with whoever this guy is, but I feel like more than anything, he watched too many movies. He been watching some of those crazy villainous, murderous movies where the freaking killer be doing all these clues and hints and have you playing this cat and mouse game and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, he watching movies like that, man. And now he is carrying it out in his own way in real life. This is all a freaking game to him. Now, him letting her go, I wonder if they're gonna come back and bite him in the ass. Let's see.
Grave concerns. Her kidnapper had remained true to his word, and although she appeared to be in an agitated frame of mind, she was otherwise relatively healthy. An interview with officers would reveal some stark details. According to Stephanie, her abductor was a man in his 40s who used a fake name to visit the property. While showing him around the home, she then walked into the bathroom. That was when he hit her over the head with a hammer, bound and blindfolded her, and then took her to his car. The next thing Stephanie knew, she found herself in what she could only describe as a damp cellar. The room was dark, musky, and cold, and precisely the sort of place you'd expect to be murdered. Sadly, she was then asked to strip before being assaulted by her assailant. After that, she was placed inside a wooden coffin, which was then placed inside a capsized bin. During her time of imprisonment, Stephanie was left inside of this confined area. She was only allowed out to be given life-sustaining food, was kept naked, and was unable to bathe. Now, despite these terrible conditions, Stephanie made use of her kind and calming nature to appeal to her assailant, smiling, joking, and even laughing a few times to humanize herself. This sort of clever manipulation likely made her more impressionable to her assailant, helping him develop feelings and helping her avoid her murder. Stephanie recorded voice notes, wrote letters, and gave in to whatever demands he wanted from her, all while being told that, as long as she and her people outside complied, she would eventually be set free. It would seem that her brave efforts to comply with the man would eventually pay off. Even after receiving the ransom money, Stephanie seemed to comply to her monster, and eventually, as promised, she was set free despite this being a significant risk to her kidnapper.
Man, shout out to Stephanie, y'all. She was literally going through hell but had a smile on her face at the same time, just to potentially, hopefully one day get out of that hell. And she did. She did. Whoever this dude is, man, I just don't understand these people. How could you feel good about locking somebody up in a little small ass, nasty ass place like that, having them butt naked? Like, what? I don't know, man. What kind of enjoyment do you get out of that? But just shout out to her for being able to endure that and make it through that. Salute.
Only 12 hours after her release, Stephanie was asked to make a public announcement. She appeared to be dazed, drugged, and distressed. And following her statement, it seemed that her kidnapper had become quite nervous about the situation. Unknown to him at the time, but he was still out of sight from detectives. But after letting his nerves get the better of him, this wouldn't last for long. In response to the public announcement, he called her employer once more to threaten them. However, little did he know that a recording device had been implanted into the landline, and that, furthermore, every word that came out of his mouth was recorded for the rest of the world to hear. After exhausting all other avenues, the authorities decided to use this voice recording against him. I mean, the man was still faceless, but at least he wasn't without a voice. On February the 20th, 1992, the BBC released this phone call on an episode of Crime Watch, attaching his voice to an artist's impression of the man that Stephanie had orchestrated. And surprisingly, one of those watching this episode was haunted to recognize his voice as no one other than her ex-husband, Michael Sams.
Wow.
At the time, this man was 41 years old and living in Sutton-on-Trent in Nottinghamshire. Michael was previously in the army, but now was a service engineer who repaired central heating systems. And according to his ex-wife, she was not surprised by his actions either. Apparently, he had already tried to extort money illegally, with his first crime in 1978 when he stole a car to commit insurance fraud. While in prison for this, he was diagnosed with cancer cancer, which unfortunately led to the amputation of his leg. It turns out that our kidnapper was actually physically disabled, making his story of being a kidnapper a little more unusual. Unfortunately,
This is the first time I ever heard of a freaking kidnapper slash murderer slash crazy motherfucker missing one leg and still doing it. You know what I'm saying, man? That's the first time, my brothers and sisters, I have ever heard of that. Wow.
his time in prison would not deter him from carrying on a life of extortion. He would often threaten train companies in derailing the passenger trains, and even threatened to poison food at local supermarkets if they didn't give in to his demands. Michael had already been married twice, had 2 children, and now lived with his 3rd wife in a shared cottage. And after being identified as a perfect fit for the suspect, he was swiftly arrested on charges of the murder of Julie Dart and the abduction of Stephanie Slater. Moving forward, it didn't take long for Stephanie to positively identify him as her assailant. And it's here that the true horrors of Michael Sams finally came to light. After his identification, the authorities made their way to his property, and after looking in the back garden, there they found an old building called his workshop. It was here that they witnessed a dark, messy, damp room, which was soon confirmed to be the same location that Stephanie had been held in for 8 long days. It was later revealed that during this time frame, he even attached electrodes to her and threatened to electrocute her if she escaped. No surprise, he was also accused of abducting and murdering Julie Dart, and although he initially denied these allegations, forensics would later confirm that she had been in the exact same room. Clothing found over her body contained yellow fibers that positively matched the carpet found in his workshop, meaning that there was next to no doubt that he was in fact her murderer.
Damn.
Moving forward, Michael Sams eventually stood trial in 1993. And although he would plead guilty to kidnapping Stephanie Slater, he denied any involvement in Julie's murder. The prosecution claimed that he used Julie as a practice run, using vulnerable women as bargaining chips for his own personal profit. This was substantiated by the fact that she had been murdered before any contact with the outside world. Michael had never intended to release her. He was merely testing the waters. Although Michael continued to deny these claims, forensic evidence would suggest otherwise. And thankfully, all of his efforts would be in vain. On July 8, 1993, he was found guilty of kidnapping Stephanie Slater and murdering Julie Dart. As a result, he was given a life sentence. He was further tried for his crimes of blackmail and extortion, including 4 separate charges against British Rail and several against the police. To be honest though, rail prices in the UK are literally daylight robbery, so I don't think anyone cares about those charges. Nevertheless, he was found guilty of all 4 instances of blackmail and given an additional 10 years for each. At the age of 42, Michael knew that he had next to no chance of experiencing life again as a free man. And so, just 3 days after his verdict, he decided to come clean and confess Julie's murder. He requested to see the senior investigating police officer, where he then went into graphic detail about the crime. He further claimed that his confession was motivated by sparing Julie's mother from any more heartbreak. He said, "I've been going over it and thinking it's only fair that she knows I did it. I mean, I obviously did do it. What can I tell her? I do feel sorry for her, yes." Despite his confession, Michael continued to be a monster. Just 2 years later, in 1995, he attacked a female parole officer with a metal spike, adding 8 years to his sentence. Even after being condemned to a cell, Michael tried to con money out of the judicial system. He routinely complained that his human rights were being violated, and would often whine about being put into solitary confinement. I mean, last time I checked, you were put into prison, mate, not the Carlton. However,
Exactly, man. Dude, you ain't got no more damn human rights, especially a motherfucker like you, because you not human. Human rights. You don't get the fuck out my face, I'll lock your ass up and throw away the key if it was me. Dude in prison complaining. Wow, man. And he got a problem with like trying to get money out of people for some reason. That's his thing, trying to find a way to finesse or trick or sue or whatever money out of people, con money out of people, whatever you want to call it. The dude just got freaking issues, man. I'm just glad he got caught and I'm glad he got life, y'all. Let's go.
He would be successful one time, as officers would lose his artificial leg during one of his transfers. As a result, he was awarded £4,000 compensation, this of course sparking public outrage. With no minimum term recommended at his trial, Michael has repeatedly applied for parole, with his most recent rejection being in April 2023. Despite this, and even to this day, he remains behind bars as one of the UK's oldest and longest serving prisoners. And with him now 82 years old, things are not looking promising for him. Although Stephanie survived her encounter with Michael, her life was riddled with post-traumatic stress that followed. In 1993, she moved to the Isle of Wight to retreat away from it all, though sadly, her trauma never left her. No longer being able to return to work as an estate agent, she went on to help the authorities in dealing with kidnapped survivors and directly help victims recover from their experiences. Sadly, after a long battle with cancer, Stephanie Slater passed away at the age of 50 in August 2017. She is said to have never fully gotten over the horrors that she faced, and it's devastating to learn that she was never given the time to recover fully. Stephanie was genuinely kind-hearted and had a future that sadly was tainted by a selfish monster. Julie Dart, who was taken from this world at the tender age of 18, was merely used by Michael to acquire money. And although her family could find some closure in his punishment, Julie would tragically lose decades of her life only for Michael to test out his ransom scheme.
Crazy.
Julie's family never got to say goodbye to their daughter, and the last time they would ever hear from her was behind a scribbled letter. With her death so pointless, it has left her family with never-ending frustration. I mean, to take something as large as life itself for a mere test run is just absolutely bewildering. Anyway folks, I think that pretty much wraps up our case today, but before I go, I'd like to know what you think about this story, because yeah, it was a wild one. Thank you again for spending time today with me, and as always, I'll see you again very soon for another video. And thanks again to Audible for sponsoring today's video. Go to audible.com/coffeehousecrime or text coffeehousecrime to 500 500 for your free trial. Thank you again folks, and I'll see you again very soon for another one. Until that moment arrives though, remember to look after yourself, look after each other, and of course, stay safe. Thank you, and goodbye.
My brothers and sisters, oh my God, man. First of all, rest in peace to both Julie and Stephanie, first and foremost. Stephanie, dude, she was just such a freaking champion, dude, to survive for those 8 days. And in a way, I can kind of look at it, right, as if she finessed him. She tricked him. I don't even remember his fucking name and don't want to remember his name, but the killer of this story. She finessed him because, you know, he was always trying to get money out of people and extort people, try to steal money, cheat people out of money any way he could. He was trying to get money out of people. But she wasn't trying to get money out of him. But what I mean is she played cool, still had a smile on her face, was cracking jokes, trying to, you know, be human around this guy so she could actually get free. And his dumb ass, and thank God that he did end up letting her free. And that's eventually what led to him getting caught. And another thing I want to say about Stephanie too, though, is hell, I'm like 99.999% sure that she never got over that. Like that, even though that she got free, man, there is no way her life was ever the same again. Tragically and sadly enough, she ended up dying from cancer at the age of 50, I think Adrian said. But even before that, I'm talking about all those years that she did after she survived that trauma, she was still always traumatized. Like PTSD with her was very freaking serious, man. So it's just still sad on that part. As far as Julie go, is 18, she still was a little girl. Well, you know, I look at 18-year-olds like they little children still, not literally, but they are not adults yet, man. Even though I think legally in a lot of states she would be considered an adult. I don't know, but I know y'all get what I'm saying, man. She ain't had started living her life yet, y'all. And for some freaking reason, he killed her. And I'm gonna say this, and don't take it the wrong way, y'all. Don't take this the wrong way, because I don't know, but this is just my speculation. Maybe the reason that he ended up killing Julie but didn't kill Stephanie because Julie wasn't acting all smiling and trying to have conversation and being all nice and, you know, cool, calm, and collected with the killer. Maybe Julie was just freaking the freak out and he ended up getting tired of it or whatever and just killed her. I don't know, y'all. That's just speculation, but that does make sense, don't it? I don't know, y'all. I don't even want to go too deep on that because I don't want none of y'all to be thinking that, oh, I'm coming up with some crazy stuff trying to say that Julie did this and she the cause of her own death. No, hell no. That's not what I'm saying at all. So y'all can goddamn go on with that shit because that is not what I'm saying, man. I'm just saying that maybe Stephanie and Julie's actions in this situation was different. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I digress. I thank y'all coming on back, man. I'm gonna let y'all go now. As always, I could go on and on about this story, but I really don't even want to talk about this killer too much. He just was one of those ones that played so many games. He played games with people's lives just to get his enjoyment, for his fulfillment, and that's just freaking disgusting to me. So we not gonna even go down that road. Like I said, man, I'm gonna let y'all go. I appreciate y'all coming back. As always, please hit that like button, comment, and subscribe if you ain't did that yet. And make sure that y'all stop on back tomorrow for another AJ from the Coffeehouse video. But until then, my friends, you also got to remember this. Love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.